Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you here this morning to this occasion where we're going to be handing over our St. Lucia Racer facility officially to the government of St. Lucia. I'd like to kindly invite you all to please stand as we get ready to sing the national anthem. Thank you. Please remain standing as we shall move into the morning's prayer. And this morning our prayer will be done by one of our senior forestry officers, Mr. Nereus Mitchell.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, we are so thankful today for keeping us alive and bringing us to this event where today we are opening this facility. Father, we pray your presence in this place as we dedicate and open this facility. We pray, dear Lord, that your presence will be near with us. We pray your blessing upon this facility. And we also pray your blessing upon those who are going to use it and benefit from it. We pray that you give them wisdom. We pray, dear Lord, that you fill them with the courage to do those things which are necessary to make sure that this facility is successful. And we pray, dear Lord, that you will give us a spirit of cooperation. This is our prayer in Christ's wonderful name.
Please take your seats. It is such a wonderful day, such beautiful weather, and I'm seeing a few, beautiful faces as well in front of me. So this morning I would like to cordially welcome everybody who has made it possible to attend this ceremony. I am quite happy that you are here and that you got here safely. I would like to inform all of us that today is a very special day for the Forestry Department as well as our conservation partners. And today, March 3rd, is actually designated as World Wildlife Day. And this year we are celebrating under the theme Partnerships for Wildlife Conservation. And what a fitting and an apt theme that we have given the event or the occasion that we are undertaking here this morning. As we partner together in this fight to conserve and to protect our critically endangered St. Lucia racer snake, this theme is extremely fitting and appropriate. And so I wish to welcome you all here this morning, and I also would like to acknowledge the presence of the following individuals. So this morning we have the Honorable Alfred Prosper, who is the Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries, Food Security and Rural Development. Welcome, Mr. Minister. Also, we have online, because this activity here is being streamed live online. So although we may not have them here personally or physically, they are online. So we'd like to acknowledge the presence of Mr. Barry Moore Philistine, who is our Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture. We also have Mrs. Soraya Niles Regis, who is our Deputy Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture. Dr. Oria King Snack, who is the Director of Agricultural Services. All our heads of departments and heads of divisions within the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Food Security and Rural Development, including Ms. Amanda Flack, who is the Information Officer, present here this morning. Also we have Water Resource Management Agency. We would like to acknowledge and welcome the presence of our conservation partners. And here this morning we have Flora and Fauna International, who is represented by Mr. Adams Tousse, who is the Programs Manager for St. Lucia. Also we have Mr. Luke Jones, who is also the Country Manager for Durrell here in St. Lucia. We have our lifelong conservation partner, the St. Lucia National Trust. We have Mr. Dominic and his team, who are present here this morning. And we also have representatives from other departments of government. We have Sustainable Development here this morning. Representatives of the OECS Commission, they should be online. Also, we have the staff of the St. Lucia National Conservation Fund. We have Mr. Henry here, and we also have Ms. Kajada. Welcome here this morning. Also, we have Mr. Jayas Romulas. We appreciate your presence here, sir. Thank you for being here as the National Program Coordinator for the Jeff Small Grants Project. Also, we have other specially invited guests. We have with us Mr. Donald Anthony, who is he was our long-time wildlife officer. He served the Forestry Department for a number of years, and so we are happy that he's here this morning. We also have Mr. and Mrs. Gregor Williams, and we appreciate the presence. And for those who didn't know, Mrs. Williams was the one who rediscovered the St. Lucia racer back in 1973 on a tour that they have with some students from the South College. Sorry, from the St. Mary's College at the time. So welcome here this morning. We also have Mr. Naja Simeon, who is the artist who drew the mural on the facility. Welcome here. And his students who may be not able to be here this morning. Also, we were supposed to have had the representatives from the St. Lucia Electricity Services as well as Harry Spades. And we'd like to welcome also the communications team from the ministry. Welcome here. And last but by no means least, we have all of our forestry staff members who are here this morning. We'd like to welcome you, staff from the various units of the department as well as our different regions. So please feel welcome as we follow through with the proceedings here this morning. My name is Pius Hayes, and I am the Assistant Chief Forestry Officer, and I shall be going through the morning's proceedings with you as we go ahead. So at this point, we will move into brief remarks from our conservation partners. On this project, we have been liaising, cooperating, collaborating with Flora and Fauna International, also Durrell Wildlife Conservation Trust, as well as the St. Lucia National Trust. So at this point, I would like to call on the heads of these various agencies as they come through to give us some brief remarks as it relates to the facility here this morning. So we call on Durrell as they come through to do his remarks. Let's give him a hand, please.
Thank you. So, as we're coming here today to celebrate World Wildlife Day and Partnerships in Conservation, I can't think of an example any better than the Race to Snake Conservation Project to really display what true partnerships in conservation looks like. One topic that's come up time and time again is conservation is really about working together. It's about working together to the benefits of others, for the future, and to ensure that our environment is protected and sustainable for those around us. The St. Lucia Race to Snake Conservation Project is not a recent thing. This represents decades of work since the rediscovery of the species back in the 70s. You know, there's real tenacity has gone into this project between the partners to ensure that it continues to raise awareness, to raise understanding. And we've finally got to this point now where we're able to take formative action to conserve one of the world's rarest species. And this is no small undertaking. This is an ambitious activity that many have shied away from. And I think it's a real testament to the tenacity of St. Lucians and the determination of St. Lucia as a people and as a country, of their willingness to take on this challenge, one that many would have shied away from. Many would have seen such small numbers and said, there's no hope in saving a species so rare. It's too big a risk. What if we're seen to fail? But the partners here, the Forestry Department, the St. Lucia National Trust, have pushed through with these activities, and despite those fears, despite those doubts, continued to develop our knowledge, develop our understandings, to engage other partners like Durham and FFI in the work that needs to be done, and to seek the support that is needed to get to where we are today. And that's in a position where we have what is probably a world-first undertaking in establishing a captive breeding facility of this extent to conserve a race snake within the Caribbean. We are bringing one of the world's rarest creatures into this facility, between 18 and 100 individuals remaining in the wild, and we're hoping that this will serve as a secondary population that will give us the capacity and the ability to not only develop the skill sets within our teams, within St. Lucia, to deliver this work and to deliver it regionally across the islands, but to increase the population and facilitate further reintroductions. This is a species that used to be ubiquitous. It used to be seen all over St. Lucia pre-colonialism and pre the introduction of mongoose. And this is a source of pride for St. Lucians. It's part of our national natural heritage. And hopefully something that we can conserve and rewild St. Lucia once again, so it's representative of the true beauty and uniqueness. You know, this is a unique selling point this island has that we can really monopolise on. And the race snake breeding facility is our opportunity to do so, and it represents a distinct investment for all partners over this period for the investment of species. I'm very excited to see how it plays out, and I have every confidence in our partnership and in the skill sets that we have here within the Forestry Department, within SLNT, within FFI, Duro, and other wider partners, that we will see that happen. So thank you for your support, and I'm going to pass on now, I believe, to Augustine Dominique, St. Lucia National Trust, for some brief words.
Good morning. Thank you. Thank you, Luke. Thank you, Chair. I extend warm greetings on behalf of the Council, members, Director and staff of the St. Lucia National Trust. And it is my pleasure as the Trust Heritage Conservation Manager to offer congratulations on the achievement of this important milestone of the handover of the Department of Forestry and the government and people of St. Lucia of this facility. How relevant and timely to be assembled here today on World Wildlife Day. Indeed, it is an ideal moment to congregate in pursuit of the singular but noble aim of advancing the conservation of St. Lucia's unique wildlife species and ensuring their continued survival. The late Gabriel Coco Charles, who was not only a forester but one of St. Lucia's foremost pioneering wildlife conservationists, and whom this complex is named after, is probably smiling upon us today. Smiling as today's action is a demonstration and continuation of his proud legacy and that of other champions like Paul Butler, Anita James, our friend here, Donald Anthony, and others and other foresters who champion this cause. As the organization established by and for the people of St. Lucia, the Trust is mandated to preserve St. Lucia's patrimony, including the heritage and assets entrusted to it for management on behalf of the people of St. Lucia. The Mariah Islands Wildlife Reserve, home of St. Lucia's rhesus snake, the St. Lucia whip-tailed lizard, and other endemic species represents one of these prized assets. Consequently, from a strategic and programming perspective, and in keeping with its mandate for heritage conservation on behalf of the people of St. Lucia, the National Trust has always placed the highest priority on the preservation of unique species on the Caribbean islands. The Trust's strategic plan envisions that our natural heritage, including our country's biodiversity, has unique intrinsic value, and ecosystems and species, especially those that do not exist anywhere else, deserve protection. Today, our focus is primarily on the rhesus snake, which is listed as critically endangered on IUCN red list and at extremely high risk of extinction in the wild. Historical records suggest that this year, 2023, is the 175th anniversary of the first mention of the St. Lucia rhesus snake, or OS. Along with this mention, a specimen collected for the British Museum of Natural History. History also records that the rhesus was at that time judged to be the second most common of 5 snake species found in many parts of the island of St. Lucia, including the Cribo, now extinct. Ironically, now the rhesus is considered the world's rarest snake. The Trust's programming framework is based on 3 pillars: societal appreciation for heritage and support for its conservation, conservation and sustainable use of built heritage and natural sites in the landscapes, and the Trust, a recognized and effective champion of St. Lucia's heritage. Partnerships are at the core of the Trust strategy for achieving strategic goals and objectives. And the story of today's milestone would not be complete without extolling the immense contribution of the national and international partners that have collaborated in this story. The Trust's vision for conservation of wildlife and Maria is one informed by its long-standing collaboration with public sector partners such as the Department of Forestry, Fisheries, and international partners such as the Royal Wildlife Trust and Flora and Fauna International. For while the Trust places emphasis on continuous dialogue, local capacity building, and scientific rigor in addressing the delicate challenge of ensuring conservation of the rhesus and other wildlife species, the vision and actions for achieving conservation of these unique species is shared by all partners. These partnerships have been ongoing for over 4 decades, and the Trust would like to place on record its sincere thanks to the Durrell Wildlife Conservation Trust and the Flora and Fauna International for their collective investments of time, knowledge, and resources for the preservation of St. Lucia's unique biodiversity. The St. Lucia Rhesus facility symbolizes another significant achievement in the steady progress towards the ultimate goal, reversal of the current status, which is reversal of the current status of the St. Lucia Rhesus. As a willing partner and actor on behalf of the people of St. Lucia in the achievement of this ultimate goal, the Trust applauds partners Forestry, FFI, and Durrell on the achievement of this milestone of the official handover of the St. Lucia Rhesus facility to the government and people of St. Lucia, and commits its efforts and resources in working towards achievement of its ultimate goal of protecting and preserving Helen's patrimony, albeit in collaboration with all partners. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Luke Jones from Durrell, as well as Mr. Augustine Dominic from the St. Lucia National Trust for your brief remarks. We will continue with the other 2 key agencies. We will have Fauna and Flora International, followed by Forestry Department. But before they come up, let me just announce here that we also have a QR code that could be accessed for online. It's on the ministry's website. And if you look around, you will see that some of the key partners we have on our t-shirt the word Kachile Kuwes. And Kachile Kuwes basically is a catchphrase that we came up with, and we're going to use that to launch our media outreach, our media campaign, conservation campaign on the St. Lucia racer from here moving forward. So we would like all St. Lucians, all persons involved in this to start to Kachile Kuwes. Kuwes is actually the Creole term for the St. Lucia racer snake. So at this point, we will have the brief remarks by Mr. Adams Tuse, who is the programs manager for the Flora and Fauna International in St. Lucia, followed by Mr. Alwyn Donnelly, who is our chief forestry officer. Let's give him a hand, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to adopt your protocol, which is already established. But before, I would like to take the permission to say how pleased I am to be back in the presence of my esteemed colleague, friend, who is now the minister, to be on the same battleground. Also continuing to battle to conserve the national patrimony of St. Lucia. So thank you, Minister, for your presence. On behalf of Fauna and Flora International, it gives me great pleasure here today to hand over this very important facility to the people of St. Lucia. One may ask, what is Fauna and Flora International? Fauna and Flora International have been in existence for over 120 years. It's probably the oldest international conservation organization established. So far, we have been operating in 40 countries, 300 sites, 50 million hectares of critical habitats, and we are working with 110 critically endangered species. Our mission basically is to conserve threatened species worldwide. So this is what we represent and who we are. The way we operate is slightly different from other NGOs. We operate in building local capacity to be able, and empowering them to be able to lead in conservation effort. So having said that, we were first started working in St. Lucia 20 years ago when we started the effort to restore the prowling island, to remove all invasive species so that we can introduce or translocate the St. Lucia whiptail. Again, Murray Island comes to the forefront, which is the main habitat for the whiptail, and we thought it was necessary to be able to do that. So Fauna and Flora International was first invited, and since then, Fauna and Flora has actually helped and empowered the local people. First of all, by invitation, and we are working in partnership. We don't work on our own. We always work in partnership with local partners. We have partnered with, of course, the Forestry Department, the St. Lucia National Trust, currently the Department of Fisheries, and we're also in the process of partnering with the Canneries, CCIF, Canneries Community Improvement Foundation, in a project in Aslali, in Canneries. Some of the work we have done includes an island-wide biodiversity assessment and be able to make recommendation for biodiversity conservation, which forms part of the National Forest Strategic Plan. And having said that, we also assisted in the development of the National Forest Strategic Plan. We also have some critical species that Fauna and Flora International worked on, including the Lassa project. You would recall just recently we talked about the pencil cedar, the Peter Christmas tree, which is a critically endangered plant species that we're working on to be able to conserve in partnership with the St. Lucia Forestry Department. We're also working with the Fisheries Department in terms of CMOS, sustainable CMOS production in the southeast coast of St. Lucia. We are here today mainly because of QS, the St. Lucia racer. Of course, you've heard why it is the world rarest snake. And Fauna and Flora International first began the process of conserving that species when we developed what was dubbed the island without aliens. And that project helped develop management plan for the offshore islands of St. Lucia, including the two Maria Islands, Parling Island, Dennery Island, Rat Island are the areas. So we work in partnership. And this theme today, and while we commemorate World Wildlife Day, which says that working in partnership for wildlife conservation is very apt and really significant today that we are actually handing over a facility to be able to protect the QS. And this is what we started some in 2012 when we developed the Island Without Alien strategy. That strategy, that program developed the Racer Conservation Action Plan, which has 3 objectives. One of the objectives is to protect the St. Lucia racer at the Maria Island. Now, I stress the Maria Island because recently you probably would have remembered that the Maria Island came under some pressure where there was some development which was planned for the Maria Island, and that, of course, we do not want to get into that stage where the Maria Island would be the subject for the change in land use. It should remain as a wildlife reserve until my great-grandchildren forever. And we have the responsibility to be able to do that and to urge the St. Lucian public to keep Maria Island under serious conservation. And the other objective is to build a captive breeding population, which we call the racer facility. Conservation always have 2 sides to a coin, like a coin, it has 2 sides. One side, and I'm just going to get a bit technical, is to say that it is in situ conservation, and that is where conservation of the species where it exists. And that's Maria Island with regards to the racer facility. The other side is ex situ conservation, is conservation where you take it out of the natural habitat and bring it into some form of captivity for conservation. And this was really needed for the racer because of the fact that it was critically endangered, and if nothing was done, the species would have been reached its demise and be extinct. And this National Forest Strategy, the National Biodiversity Strategy and Action Plan all make mention of the goals of reducing extinction, avoiding extinction of our species. So this is one of the commitments we have had, and Fauna and Flora International are happy to be able to provide the kind of resources and assistance to be able to help the local partners in achieving this major objective. And I also want to stress one practice which is novel and very important. In the past, what you would have is that endangered species were always removed from the country of origin and brought to Europe or America for conservation. This is a very important practice where FFI is actually empowering and working in country with local partners, and we would not ever remove the species and bring it overseas. So that's really important to stress, and that is a very important milestone for us to be able to mention and boast about, because there is a change in practice in keeping with the Nagoya Protocol, where you have that St. Lucia recently signed. The other objective is to have another area for conservation of the species, because the Maria Island is very small and it's limited to the number of racer that it can accommodate. If we have to introduce it back on the mainland or restore the mainland population, we would have to remove invasive species, mongoose, rats, and all of the pressure throughout the island, which is not feasible. So we have been working with the National Trust, the St. Lucia Forestry Department, and National Trust was able to allocate 50 hectares of land at Ansla Liberty for us to be able to develop the Ansla Liberty mainland island, which is on a site where the area will be fenced with pest-proof fence, all invasive species removed, and we're hoping that with the success of the racer facility, we can bring in the racer, the young generation of racer, in the Maria Island, the mainland island, so that they can actually flourish for, and I mean, this is a wider area of 50 hectares. And also some of the critically endangered species would be placed in there as well. So this is where we were, this is where we are currently, and the mainland island is where we're going. So it gives me great pleasure here to be here representing FFI to hand over the facility, which was constructed in 2021 during the period of COVID, and it was started in 2020 and completed in 2021. The construction company was a local company called Advanced Construction, and thereafter the Forestry Department, Dorel, and the St. Lucia National Trust worked in terms of preparing the facility so that we can be able to welcome the first racer in captivity. So at this stage, I would like to say thank you very much for everybody for coming here, and I take great pleasure and pride in being here representing FFI to hand over the facility to the government and people of St. Lucia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tousse. We appreciate your comments. And Mr. Tousse made a plea for the conservation of Maria Islands forever. And we truly hope that it would stay like this, indeed, forever. And he also made a commitment of the mainland island. Now, I in particular am very, very excited about this whole mainland island concept, because without it, we will not be able to accomplish the bigger goal of having our racers not all in one basket, but in different sites all over the country. So I'm looking forward to this next phase of the project, which will be this mainland island. At this point, we shall have the brief remarks by our Chief Forestry Officer, Mr. Alwyn Donnelly. So let's give him a hand as he comes forward to make his remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Pius, and thanks to our colleagues, our friends, thanks to everyone for coming. Since the protocol has been established, I would like to accept the established protocol. And a pleasant good morning to all. This morning, we have reached a milestone. And I stand here with much interest, with much excitement. I am very elated about not just this moment here today, but as the outcome, the effort that has been put into the conservation of our species. We have recognized, and for decades, long before I came into the Forestry Department, the importance of what is ours, the species, the forest, the wildlife, and in various ways we have been able to coexist, to exist together with those resources. And it will continue to be so. But along the way, and sometimes through efforts that are not dependent on human intervention, we do find that some of the very aspects of nature that we love so much are dwindling away, are diminishing. Now, yes, a lot of it is because of our actions, sometimes unconscious of that our actions are actually creating or diminishing the very resources that we are part of for survival. And it is not only just about, ourselves surviving, but nature itself, the species, the forest, the wildlife. This morning we are here. We have reached a milestone for the conservation of the St. Lucia River, what we also would have heard in Creole terms is called the QS. Now, I know some of you, well, we are the converted ones, and perhaps not from this forum here, but generally we know that there is this feeling, antagonistic feeling, about snakes generally. And yes, as we celebrate also the World Wildlife Day, the key theme, conservation, working together, with partners, we have realized that we cannot do it alone. We need these kinds of relationships to be able to conserve, to be able to protect our species. And in that instance, it is the St. Lucia River. As I was going to say previously, that some may ask the question, are we insane? Are we in our right thinking minds? Are we drunk? Or are we sober? And lots of other descriptions that might be used, because generally we have not come to the realization of the importance of some of our species, and particularly snakes. So once you talk about a snake, it doesn't matter whether it's the St. Lucia boa, the St. Lucia racer, the worm snake, or the St. Lucia perdulans. To some persons, they are all snakes, and they cause the same response, fear in persons. That milestone we have reached here today we do have quite a lot more to do. And it is that same, public, the general public, that we also have to preach to. Well, I say preach, which is a very mild term. Educate. We need to be able to make them understand, the importance, of our species. And what we are doing here today serves a very critical role in protecting, our what is ours, our patrimony. Nowhere else in the world will you get another Saint Lucia racer, and that's why it's called its name, after Saint Lucia, because it is truly a Saint Lucian species. So sometimes when I chit chat about it, I say it's truly a Saint Lucian. The Saint Lucia parrot is truly a Saint Lucian. Um, and that makes this species, you see, just as I'm speaking about, the wildlife and the parrots, I'm sure you can hear that. That's commendable. Yes. Um, these are our species, and we have to do all in our power, to protect and preserve them. A few individuals on a small island offshore is by no means the protection that we would like, for the species. And even as we open, we do this handing over of the breeding facility here today, that is a critical step forward. But we will need to do a lot more. We will need to do a lot more to create, that chance of for the species, for it surviving, because it is part of our ecosystem, and we cannot allow any part of our ecosystem to disappear, to die out, because it also impacts, on us. I am very happy, I'm very elated when also there's some of us here who would have done much work, in the past. And I work together with my colleague here, Donald Anthony. He, to a large extent, was my mentor when it came to wildlife on other areas too. But we worked with such, passion for, generally the work we did, but when it had come to, the wildlife and species, I must, recognize his presence and the work that we did. You cannot talk about wildlife and don't think of Donald Anthony. But as well, our partners from the St. Lucia National Trust, some of them who are present here with us, and yes, those of the past also, very strategic relationships that we have. We have Fauna and Flora International, who we have worked very closely with, and they have supported us in tremendous ways. We have the Daryl Wildlife Conservation Trust, who's worked with us for over 40 years. Just last week, I had a colleague, Mr. King, Julian King, and he was just giving me a small background of when he started working in forestry. And he mentioned the name Jovicic. And that caught my attention because I only came across that name in reading about, doing literature research about the St. Lucia parrot. And it was always associated, a name that was associated with Daryl, Jersey. It used to be Jersey Preservation Trust at the time. And Jovicic worked, I'm thinking, from the late 60s into the early 70s on the St. Lucia parrot. So when I heard this name from Mr. King at the time, it just caught my attention. That he, Mr. King, also had this institutional experience, this work experience way back, in the 70s. I promised that I would call him back again so we could have further discussions, on that. But these are the folks, these are the persons who we worked with, on several projects and who has helped to shape and to bring us today to this milestone. I cannot leave out to the staff of the Forestry Department, Quiles Range, the Wildlife Unit, those who work, at the zoo. You have George. Anytime you mention the zoo, George always comes up. Denry Range, Soufre, Millet. Once we talk about wildlife, we have our wildlife programs. Everybody wants to participate, in the effort. And being forest officers, the programs that are planned in such a way that the staff, would participate and would help. So I also want to recognize, the efforts of our general staff. I could stay here as long as it takes, but I just want to recognize where we have reached today, and that we will continue, to make every effort to save, our species. And today, the spotlight, is on the St. Lucia racer. I just want to say quickly, we have Mr. and Mrs. Williams, Gregor Williams. These names came up too. Very instrumental when all was fought lost with the QS in 1973, that we had a sighting, by Mrs. Williams and Gregor, at that time. So that really set the pace for lots of things, and even where we are today. So I want to thank everybody for coming, and we do look forward to even more exciting efforts and things to come as we look to conserve, one of our key species, the St. Lucia racer, or ça nous connaît comme QS en patois. Merci. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Alwyn Donnelly. You started the Creole, so we can as well continue it. He said a lot of things that resonated with us here. But key among them is the fact that he mentioned that the St. Lucia racer is also St. Lucian. And I hope we can catch you later about that. The St. Lucia racer is also a true St. Lucian. So thank you, Mr. Donnelly, for your remarks. And before we move, we're going to move into a musical interlude. at this point in time. But I just wanted to refer to the story that he mentioned with regards to Mr. and Mrs. Gregor Williams. I mean, they were on that tour with some students from the St. Mary's College back in 1973. And his wife was actually the one who spotted the racer. And she said, "Hey, I think this is a snake." And then the next thought that the husband, Mr. Gregor Williams, thought to do was to just grab her by the t-shirt away from the snake. Because, you know, she's from Ireland. She's you know, and there are no snakes there. So she doesn't have the concept of, but then he being a St. Lucian, you know, thinking about, you know, snake, you know, pull her away. But we're very happy that the species was rediscovered, and today we can crown it a fully St. Lucia, or St. Lucia's own. It is our own. So at this point, we will have a musical interlude that speaks to just that. I am a true St. Lucian. So listen carefully. If you want to dance and whatever you want to do, you can feel free.
Yeah. Ooh, oh, yeah. I am a West Indian, yeah. That's who I am. Find that place so sweet, melodies in the heat. Everybody's on the road, we jumping for one goal. To where the soca play, our culture on a display. Everybody say we vibes a special way.
But I ain't seen nobody dancing, huh?
Everybody masquerading, the music sounds so sweet.
I have two left feet, I can't dance.
I jumping in a band, need you to understand. I am a West Indian, no matter how far I go. Thank God that I am a West Indian, and I come from the land of sun. Thank God that we come from the Caribbean, where the party never done. Let me see your hands up for soca music, hands up for the greatest festival, hands up, 'cause all of we are one. Hands up if you are a West Indian, hands up, that the party up in there, hands up, Caribbean people everywhere, hands up, raise your flag up in the air, if you are a West Indian. I know but I cannot explain, it's like bacchanal running through my veins. It's a feeling we cannot contain. We letting go when it's coming out. To see the people playing, everybody masquerading. The music sounds so sweet. It's only we who feel it. I jumping in a band. I need you to understand. I am a West Indian, no matter how far I go. Thank God that I am a West Indian, and I come from the land of sun. Thank God that we come from the Caribbean, where the party never done. Let me see your hands up for soca music, hands up for the greatest festival, hands up, 'cause all of we are one. Hands up if you are a West Indian, hands up, that the party up in there, hands up, Caribbean people everywhere, hands up, raise your flag up in the air, if you are a West Indian. I am a West Indian. This is who I am. I am a West Indian. This is who I am. If you are West Indian, then show me your day. Put something up in the air. Antigua, put your flag up. Barbados, put your flag up. Grenada, put your flag up. St. Kitts and Nevis, put your flag up. Jamaica, put your flag up. Guyana, put your flag up. Trinidad, put your flag up. St. Lucia, I love to see the people playing. Everybody masquerading. The music sounds so sweet. It's only me who feel it. I jumping in a band. I need you to understand. I am a West Indian, no matter how far I go.
So thank God our St. Lucia racer is not only a West Indian, but more specifically a St. Lucian. Okay? So we thank you for this musical interlude. And another point that is worth mentioning is the fact that the St. Lucia racer is among 4 of our snake species extinct, those that are still existing. But we need to emphasize the point that it is harmless. It is a harmless snake, and also it is very shy, very shy. So most persons in St. Lucia want to believe, well, once you see a snake, you know, it's poisonous automatically. But the St. Lucia racer is absolutely harmless. It has no venom, and it's actually a very shy snake. So it is indeed one that we need to make the great effort to ensure that we preserve and that we have, because it's our very own, as was made mention in the earlier remarks. At this point in time, we shall move into our feature address, and I'm very happy, I'm very proud to announce here that, our feature address will be delivered by our very own Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries, Food Security and Rural Development. And he is also a forester. He is our immediate past Chief Forest Officer. And he's very au courant, he's very aware of the need to conserve our species, our wildlife species here in St. Lucia. And it also gives me pleasure to see so many of our, important ex-foresters here. And there's one who sits before me and he always says, once a forester, always a forester. So I'm happy to have him here, Mr. Alfred Prosper, as he comes through to do for us the feature address for the morning. Let's give him a hand.
Thank you, Master of Ceremonies. I did not know until I got here today that I had to do the feature address. I was told that I was supposed to be delivering remarks, but I will try to transform the remarks that I was supposed to do into a feature address. I must start by saying I'm very happy to be there today. But before I continue my remarks or feature address, I want to recognize a few people. My PS, my Deputy PS, my Director of Agricultural Services, heads of department, Veterinary and Livestock Division, Water Resources Agency, Plant Research, Fisheries, representatives from our conservation partner agencies, Fauna and Flora International, Jurel, St. Lucia National Trust, St. Lucia Conservation Fund, Giles Romulus, Donald, my ex-forester, my previous supervisor, all the staff of the Forestry Department, the staff of the Ministry of Sustainable Development, all the invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me say a pleasant good morning. Before moving further, I am a little disappointed. I am disappointed because I wanted to see at least some of our young people at this ceremony today. And we have a school just across there, and I didn't see one, but I'm not blaming anybody, but I would have been really happy to see at least some young persons there, because that is about their future. It is about their future, because they are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. They are going to take over from us. I hate sometimes to be speaking to the converted. I hate it sometimes, because everybody here in forestry and everybody here, most of you are aware of the project. You are aware of the work that we've been doing for years, decades. But where are the young people who are there to take over from us? But I see Adam smiling. I'm not blaming anybody, but I would have loved to see a few of our young people here. Now, I remember when I was the Chief Forestry Officer in 2020 when this project started. My office was just across there. And I remember when Adams came to me about this project, and he said to me, Prosper, we have to cut some of those trees. And I said, I have known this place to be a very critical piece of forest reserve. And here is it. We had to cut it to put this breeding facility. Initially, we looked at right here, and then we were told that it was too small. I remember one day I stayed in the office, and I saw trees felling all over the place in the back there. I quickly ran out and I called Adams. I had to tell him, what's going on? What's going on? All the trees have been cut to put this facility. And I had a back and forth with him right here. When I told him, you're destroying valuable, significant forest cover to just put a building. So his explanation was, you're supposed to have enough space, and you're supposed to ensure there's enough sunlight, and all the things that came with it. And I said to him, Adams, make that the last tree that you cut because I cannot take it on because, you know, we work so hard to conserve these 10,000 hectares of forest reserve that we have in St. Lucia. A percentage of forest that is so small, and it hurts me. I was feeling hurt at the time that putting a building there at the cost of losing almost an acre of forest. You know what happened at the time? I never really realized the significance of this project until afterwards. And today I stand there as the minister to launch this project. This project is significant not only for us as a department, as a ministry, but for the future of St. Lucia. I see today as being historic. And just 2 days or 3 days ago, we were in the parliament discussing the accession to the CCJ. And we saw it as a historic moment for us. Today I see this as a very historic moment and a massive achievement for the Forestry Department and the Ministry of Agriculture. I say this because I remember the same situation happening with our parrots in 1980, when our parrot population reduced to less than 100. And I remember Gabriel Charles at the time, being the chief forest officer, was very concerned, and we had to move some of our parrots from here to Jersey. Am I right, Adams? We came back, and I remember it was Oswald and Lucy, and they were right here. And we made history because our young people, our populace came out and actually saw and understand the story behind it. Just a few years ago, we found ourselves in a situation with ACTP. And I remember the back and forth and the concerns expressed by my very own staff in this department at the time when I was the chief. And they had the feeling that they were of the view that we should not be sending our parrots to ACTP. At the time, I was the one to sign the agreement. We signed the agreement. And there were a lot of criticisms. But I'm saying that to inform you that this Murray Island we have with those 20 or so racers can be wiped off tomorrow. Because climate change is having a very negative impact on our forest resources. And we do not know when that day will come, where that entire island or islet will disappear. Do we say at that time we should be putting measures in place to protect the species? Our entire forest reserve can be destroyed in one natural disaster. Is that the time we should be going about saying we should have taken a proactive measure to create a safety net for our parrots? No. And so this conservation effort with the racer is very significant for us today. And I feel very good as a minister having to make a contribution towards this when I was the chief forestry officer. I can tell, based on what I've seen, I've heard, the area of the Murray Island is just 40 acres. It's 40 acres. Now, if you think of climate change and sea level rise, how certain are we that in the next 5 years we may have no races on the island? And this is why I like the proactive approach that was taken by us, and I will stand firm to say I'm in support of it. And if there are other species, whether it's flora or fauna, and we have to do the same, I will support it. Because none of us knew last year in November, when the people in Beaufort and Dennery and Soufrière and other areas in the south were experiencing heavy sunshine, and we had people flooding in the north. This is the reality of the world now. We do not know when climate change will ever come to an end, but we have to put measures in place to avoid the impacts of climate change having negative consequences on our forest resource. I remember in 2010, and again I worked with my supervisor at the time, we lost more than 500 acres or hectares of our forest reserve. And this had serious implications for our water quality, our water quantity, our wildlife habitats, and we had to come in and put measures in place to deal with that. So there is need for us to build resilience. And this step is a step in the right direction. I want to say a big thank you to FFI, URL, and all the other partners who were involved in this project. I am hoping, I was just told after just talking to Pius a while ago, the wildlife officer, previous wildlife officer, that we did have one racer in there, but it didn't survive. This is not a very good thing to hear, and I'm hoping that we can find a way to cause the survival of the species, because if that does not happen, it's just been a building standing in the forest. I'm hoping that we can come up with some measures to do whatever is possible to make it work and to make it a success. I want to call on the Forestry Department that this is a major gift, a major donation by external funding agencies. I'm going to repeat. The Forestry Department, this is a major gift, a major donation that was given to us. Let's do the best we can to manage it so we can, or it can realize the intended purpose. Just across a few yards from us, we began the establishment of a major wildlife conservation and education center. And this project started, I don't suppose the date you would remember? Many years, and we have not been able to accomplish it. I have been trying my best to get in touch with the individual at ACTP, and I'm not very successful in doing that. But I want to see the completion of this building, because this building, its completion will tie in very well with this project. Just behind me, we have the commencement of the Union Trail. We have the nursery where we produce most, if not all, of the seedlings that we use for reforestation and a number of other projects. Here we have the Wildlife Conservation Education Center. We have the research project, and we have the staff of the Forestry Department in one area where we can really use this opportunity to boost our efforts in education of our young people, education of our populace, sensitization of our populace, and more importantly, generating revenue from our hard work and efforts for the country. So I see this tying very well. And so when somebody walks into, for example, the Union Nursery, they can purchase plants, but at the same time they can visit the Wildlife Conservation Education Center. They can do a tour on the Union Trail. And I was told people cannot go in there, but I'm advising or making a suggestion whether we can put in a small camera or 2 cameras in there. So when our young people get there and they ask about this, they may not be able to get too close to the building, but they'll be able to get an idea or an indication as to what is happening in there. We must never forget our young people. They are the future. I was in forestry. I spent 44 years. I'm out of it. All the young persons are coming. And we have to understand our young people will be very, very significant in the future in terms of taking over from all the hard work that we've done. I want to specially recognize Mr. and Mrs. Williams. Am I right? Mr. and Mrs. Williams, for the hard work, your continuous effort in conservation and all of the work that you have done. I wish I had the opportunity to get a special reward for you and your wife for the continuous interest and effort, dedication and commitment in terms of conservation and so on. I am going to say a big thank you on behalf of the ministry to Adams Tousse. He started the project. FFI, Jewel, all the staff of the Forestry Department, which in one way or the other contributed to the project and to the success of the project, and all other conservation partners like National Trust, St. Lucia National, I keep forgetting, Conservation Fund, and every one of you who made a contribution one way or the other to the conservation of, or to where we are today. Our biodiversity conservation is very, very significant to any country. And just last year, December, I had the opportunity to represent St. Lucia at the ministerial segment of biodiversity. And there were a number of issues raised, especially challenges and concerns relating to small island states like St. Lucia. Our vulnerability to climate change, our vulnerability to natural disasters. And it is very important that we keep those things in mind, because one day we might just be the victim of a major natural disaster and our biodiversity will be compromised. I call on all of you, especially the dedicated, committed foresters, that people like Adams, people like Donald, people like me left behind, to take on that responsibility of managing our natural forest resources, managing our water resources, because these resources are significant and will always be significant to the development of our country. I wish I could go a little longer, but I think I've said it all, because Alwyn had a very good speech, Alwyn Adams, and I do not believe I should dwell too much on discussing conservation measures, but to end by saying I am very happy with this project. And I will be visiting this area because that's my route to work sometimes. Do not ever think that I will just be at this lunch and you may not see me again. I will be here very, very regularly to see the progress and development of this facility, because I know it is significant for us as a country. It is significant to us as a people. And let's make good use of what was awarded to us as a gift, as a donation, and let's make it work for the best of our people in this country. Thank you very much.
Yes, so we thank our dear Honorable Minister for his address, and I am sure today he has forgiven us all for cutting the trees, and he has seen the bigger picture and the absolute need for the conservation facility to have happened where it is. And I will dare say that I could not have seen any better place for it than where it is right here. So we are quite happy. And thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for your lovely words. And we will, but of course, take note of the fact that the Ministry of Agriculture will be putting their full support behind this entire conservation thrust. Right, so at this point, I would like to ask to get ready for the ribbon cutting ceremony. So let's just get ready for that part. But before we do this, I would like to take note of what the minister said, that we need to think into the future. We need to think of the of tomorrow, and he mentioned a lot. He emphasized the need to have the youngsters, the young people, participating in this initiative, and he's correct. And I mean, there are even persons who may be online, and they might be thinking to themselves, because he mentioned in his speech that here we are preaching to the converted. But what about those persons who do not know, much about wildlife? They don't even have, their mind oriented around wildlife. They perhaps may be asking, what is the relevance, the significance, the value of this quest and this racist snake that they're talking about? But you see, the thing is, we human beings cannot live without nature. We cannot live without the wildlife. We need it. And so the St. Lucia racer forms part of our natural environment. In fact, it is endemic to St. Lucia. You will not find this particular species or this particular snake anywhere else in the world but in St. Lucia. So it is something that we need to be proud of, and something that truly represents our patrimony. So we need to keep it and be proud of it. Also, I mean, it forms a part of our natural environment. Sometimes, we tend to disregard the great significance that, the even smaller wildlife, the microorganisms, have on the on our very existence. They play a very crucial role, you know, in helping to shape and to assist in the functioning of our natural environment. So we need to make the effort to conserve them. There is also a great opportunity for fostering economic activity through ecotourism and so on. Many times, I mean, we speak about tourism as being, you know, the first pillar in our economy. And, you know, the tourists, when they come, they want to see something. Okay? So the St. Lucia racer is one that they cannot see anywhere else in this world, but only here in St. Lucia. So that is, you know, a feather. That is a prize that we have, and we need to really cherish it. Also, there is that great thing called the flagship species. And the St. Lucia racer is a flagship species for the Maria Islands, and we also want to make it as, you know, a flagship in our dry forest as well. And so it is one that we know we really have to take full possession of and protect. And we also have the opportunities for external funding from our external agencies and so on. So there are many, many, many benefits and value that could be accrued from the St. Lucia racer snake, as small as it may be. So I would like to follow through with our program as we do the cutting of the ribbon. And so I invite our key conservation partners, the representatives from the St. Lucia National Trust, from Durrell Wildlife Conservation Trust, from Fauna and Flora International, and also from Forestry. I would like them to place themselves by the ribbon, and we would like our dear minister to do us the honor of cutting the ribbon. But of course, you in the background could share when that moment happens. So let us come, and we will focus our camera on the cutting of the ribbon. Okay, well, we can do that. Yeah, we can do that. Okay, so we have two scissors here, but of course the ceremony here is a handing over from the Fauna and Flora International, who has been the agency who funded the construction of the facility. So Fauna and Flora will be, the representative, Mr. Adams Tousse, will be given us scissors along with the minister, Mr. Alfred Prosper. And National Trust and Durrell will also be at their side, one on each side, please. Forestry and National Trust, one on each side. And we will be getting ready, positioning our cameras, our phones, you know, take our photographs of the moment. So, Mr. Luke Jones, please find yourself before the ribbon. So we have Durrell, we have National Trust, we have Flora and Fauna International, and we have the scissors in the hands of Mr. Adams Tousse and the Honorable Minister, Mr. Alfred Prosper. So are we ready for the cutting? Yes. All right, go ahead. Whilst you're cutting, you could, you know, just shout out, Kachile Kuwes. Kachile Kuwes. Hey! Hip hip. Hip hip. All right, so we thank you very much. Officially, we have cut the ribbon, and we have entered into a new chapter in the history of our conservation efforts here in St. Lucia. Now we're going to have the handing over of the keys from the Fauna and Flora International to the government of St. Lucia via the Forestry Department. So Mr. Donnelly and Mr. Adams Tousse will be transferring or handing over the keys from FFI to the Forestry Department. So let's focus our attention there. Are we ready for this? All right, so the hands they have clasped their hands, and the keys are being handed over from Fauna and Flora International over to the Forestry Department. Hip hip. Thank you very much. But of course, we have a long way ahead. Catchy Lane, Kuwes. Thank you very much, Mr. Adams Toussaint. Thank you, Mr. Olin Donnelly. At this point, we will have our vote of thanks, followed by a walk through the facility. So I'd like to ask everyone to please take back your seats as we will have the vote of thanks, and then we will have a walk through the facility. So I invite you kindly to please resume your sitting as we have our vote of thanks done this morning. Our vote of thanks will be delivered by one of our forest officers who is attached to the wildlife unit in the person of Miss Janet Victor. She has been a long-standing employee at the department, and her passion has always been towards wildlife conservation. And so I'd like to invite her as she delivers the vote of thanks. Let us give her your attention, and please round of applause for her.
Good day to all. I wish to adopt the established protocols. It gives me great pleasure to be delivering the vote of thanks for this official handing ceremony of the St. Lucia Research Facility as we celebrate World Wildlife Day. First and foremost, I'd like to give praises to Tahir Bin for taking us here safely and ask that he takes us back home safe. As an employee of the Forestry Department for almost 17 years, yes, 2006, and I've been assigned to the Wildlife Unit for all this time. I've been working alongside various agencies for the conservation of the St. Lucia Reserve. I must admit, when this project first started, I didn't see the big picture. It was a bit fuzzy. And I must say, I listened and I asked questions. I used the 6 honest men: the who, the what, the why, the when, the how. And of course, all these were answered when the project began. Today, as we gather here, I acknowledge the contribution of all, for it could not have been done without you. A warm thank you to each and everyone for making it here today and for the unwavering support throughout. To our conservation partners, Fauna and Flora International, for providing the funding for the construction, Darrell Wildlife Conservation Trust for the technical support, and the St. Lucia National Trust, who have been a long-time partner. We say thank you. We also wish to thank our dear Minister, the Honorable Alfred Prosper, and other colleagues of the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Forestry, and Rural Development for the show of support towards these conservation efforts. Upon completion, we were faced with a mammoth task of getting this facility fully functional. Though the technical support was already secured, the electric power which was needed for this facility was beyond our reach. To the management and staff of the St. Lucia Electrical Services, Lucilec, we say thank you for waiving all the costs for this project. And to the team from the Ministry of Infrastructure who undertook the wiring, of course, and the inspection, we say thank you as well. Mr. Jane Changer and his team. We thank the management and staff of Harris Spence, Saki Productions, Mr. Nashe Simeon, arts teacher of the Soja Secondary School, and also students who painted this mural on the facility. I too participated on this day along with staff from the St. Lucia National Trust and Darrell Wildlife Conservation, and I thoroughly enjoyed painting. I've never painted before, but this day it was a good day, and I say thank you to you as well. A special thank you to Forestry Division, my dear colleagues who have provided their continued support for the biosecurity efforts held on the Usher Islands, especially the Northern Range for Rat Island, Dennery Range for Prale and Dennery Island, and Quilles Range for the Marias, Maria Major and Maria Minor. I know at times I call at the 11th hour, but they always accommodate me whenever I call. So I say to you, thank you. To the field team who conducts weekly monitoring of the St. Lucia Racer in the last known habitat, which is the Maria Major, and who have become like conservation family. So these are members of the Wildlife Unit, Darrell Wildlife Conservation Trust, the St. Lucia National Trust, the staff of the Quilles Range and others. Let us continue with that zeal as we do good for the conservation of all wildlife species. Our work is far from over, but I am heartened to know that we are dedicated and determined. To the persons who work hard behind the scenes, the planning committee, Ms. Smith, Mr. Haynes, Sean Fossois, Ms. Amanda Fick Clark, and conservation partners, Mr. Adams Tousse and Luke Jones, we say thank you. To the decorating team, Mr. Chris Sillies and the others, for such lovely decorations, we also say thank you. To the team of persons who ensured the grounds were ready, Mr. Peter Jean-Pierre, the workers of the Northern Ranges and Dennery Ranges, we say a big thank you to all. Without you, this event would not have been possible. In closing, special mention, to Ms. Amanda Fick Clark and her Information Dissemination and Communication Management Unit for providing live media coverage for this event. We say thank you very much. In closing, let us all remember, all our special guests, thanks for coming. I think I had that. In all, let us remember, no man is an island, for our survival is dependent on our actions. We must join forces, for many hands make light work. Thank you all for gracing us with your presence, and we thank you once more.
Yay! Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jeanette. Thank you, Ms. Victor, for your vote of thanks. And she said two phrases that resonate or stayed with me. She said, no man is an island. And she also said that many hands make light work. And this is so apt and so true for this conservation effort here, that together, as our theme for World Wildlife Day says, partnership in wildlife conservation. We definitely cannot do this work alone. It has to be this collaborative effort, this partnership that we need from all different agencies and all different corners. And, but of course, the island on a whole. So I wish to thank you, Ms. Victor, for the vote of thanks, and also thank you all for having been present here this morning. We have come to the end of the ceremony, and at this point, we will have a walk through the facility, and thereafter we will have some refreshments that will be served at the opening, in fact, at the open area within the wildlife conservation facility out there. Also, if anybody wants to use the washrooms, we have washrooms down there as well. So thank you for being here this day. Thank you for your presence. And we shall have the walkthrough with those who are here, but we cannot have it with everybody. We can only take small numbers. So we can have a few groups of at least 5 persons just to go through the facility. And we will have Mr. Kiran, who is our herpetologist, the specialist who takes care of, reptiles. He is here to facilitate that process, the walkthrough. So I'd like to invite him as we go through. I'd like the walkthrough to begin with the minister and, Craig Henry, Mr. Giles Romulus, perhaps Mr. and Mrs. Williams, if they can, With the partners, we'll follow them as well. And then, we'll have a procession of all those who are interested thereafter. We'll go in small groups. So I'd like to invite Mr. Minister, the partners, conservation partners, Mr. Craig Henry, Mr. Giles Romulus, also Mr. Donald Anthony, Mr. Gregor Williams, and thereafter we could have a smaller group of others who are also willing to have the walkthrough done. So once again, thank you all for your participation. Thank you for being here. We appreciate your presence. And we bring this ceremony to an official close. Thank you and have a good day.
Thanks again, and thanks for mentioning the students.
I am a St. Lucian, yeah, that's who I am. Find that place so sweet, melodies in the heat. Everybody's on the road, we jumping for one goal. To where the soca play, our culture on a display. Everybody say, we vibes a special way. To see the people playing, everybody celebrating. The music sounds so sweet, it's only we who feel it. I'm proud of where I'm from, I need you to understand. I am a St. Lucian, no matter how far I go. Thank God that I am a St. Lucian, and I come from the land of sun. Thank God for the Helen of the West, simply beautiful and blessed. Let me see your hands up for I and Ola. Hands up if you're proud of where you're from. Hands up, cause all of we are one. Hands up if you are St. Lucian. Hands up, start the party up in there. Hands up, Lucian people everywhere. Hands up, raise a flag up in the air. If you are St. Lucian, I don't know but I cannot explain. We love the culture and heritage. It's a feeling we cannot contain. So let we go, go. To see the people playing, everybody celebrating. The music sounds so sweet, it's only we who feel it. I'm proud of where I'm from, I need you to understand. I am a St. Lucian, no matter how far I go. Thank God that I am a St. Lucian, and I come from the land of sun. Thank God for the Helen of the West, simply beautiful and blessed. Let me see your hands up for I and Ola. Hands up if you're proud of where you're from. Hands up, cause all of we are one. Hands up if you are St. Lucian. Hands up, start the party up in there. Hands up, Lucian people everywhere. Hands up, raise a flag up in the air. If you are St. Lucian, I am a St. Lucian. This is who I am. I am a St. Lucian. This is who I am. If you're a St. Lucian, then show me you there. Put something up in the air. Go feel it, put your flag up. Capri, put your flag up. Last Larry, put your flag up. Soufouye Swazel, put your flag up. Labori, put your flag up. Vieux-Fort, put your flag up. Miku, Wale, Delrido, I love to see the people playing, everybody celebrating. The music sounds so sweet, it's only we who feel it. I'm proud of where I'm from, I need you to understand. I am a St. Lucian, no matter how far I go. Thank God that I am a St. Lucian, and I come from the land of sun. Thank God for the Helen of the West, simply beautiful and blessed. Let me see your hands up for I and Ola. Hands up if you're proud of where you're from. Hands up, cause all of we are one. Hands up if you are St. Lucian. Hands up, start the party up in there. Hands up, Lucian people everywhere. Hands up, raise a flag up in the air. If you are St. Lucian. a St. Lucian, yeah, that's who I am. Find that place so sweet, melodies in the heat. Everybody's on the road, we jumping for one goal. To where the soca play, our culture on a display. Everybody say, we vibes a special way. To see the people playing, everybody celebrating. The music sounds so sweet, it's only we who feel it. I'm proud of where I'm from, need you to understand. I am a St. Lucian, no matter how far I go. Thank God that I am a St. Lucian, and I come from the land of sun. Thank God for the Helen of the West, simply beautiful and blessed. Let me see your hands up for I and Ola. Hands up if you're proud of where you're from. Hands up, cause all of we are one. Hands up if you are St. Lucian. Hands up, start the party up in there. Hands up, Lucian people everywhere. Hands up, raise a flag up in the air. If you are St. Lucian, I know but I cannot explain. We love the culture and heritage. It's a feeling we cannot contain. So let we go, go. To see the people playing, everybody celebrating. The music sounds so sweet, it's only we who feel it. I'm proud of where I'm from, I need you to understand. I am a St. Lucian, no matter how far I go. Thank God that I am a St. Lucian, and I come from the land of sun. Thank God for the Helen of the West, simply beautiful and blessed. Let me see your hands up for I and Ola. Hands up if you're proud of where you're from. Hands up, cause all of we are one. Hands up if you are St. Lucian. Hands up, start the party up in there. Hands up, Lucian people everywhere. Hands up, raise a flag up in the air. If you are St. Lucian, I am a St. Lucian. This is who I am. I am a St. Lucian. This is who I am. If you're a St. Lucian, then show me you there. Put something up in the air. Go feel it, put your flag